Boot Fixer.
2 methods to upgrade a new SATA hard disk in a hard-modded original Xbox.
Beep, beep, beep. Game on.
In my previous video in this series for the original Xbox, I used the run-of-the-mill Xbox 1.6B that was modded with an Aladdin XT plus 2 Modchip. Back in the day, this was the cheapest way to mod a 1.6, and this box is cheap not just because of the Aladdin Modchip, but also because it still had the original IDE 40 cable and the stock 8GB hard disk inside, making it pretty clear this unit was only ever used to play DVD or backups. So let's give this unit a little love and upgrade it. I will be going for something clean and simple, friendly on the budget, and basically a Best Buy variant. Sound like something you would enjoy? Great, then let's go. So let's set some clear goals for this video. We are upgrading this Xbox so that the average gamer can enjoy thousands of gaming hours across the Xbox library without breaking the bank. For clarity, this scenario applies to just about all hard-modded machines out there that are still running the original 8GB stock hard disk or already have a replacement like a 40, 80 or 120GB IDE hard disk. All of these were popular choices for mods back in the day when storage still costs a fortune. I will list 3 things that you need to add up to a total budget somewhere between $20 and $80, depending slightly on which variants you buy and where you source them. The cost of my example is about $30 and it enables this Xbox to hold approximately 250 original Xbox games. It is such a great budget sweet spot, easily covering all the heavy hitters from the Xbox library and more for literally thousands of gameplay hours to enjoy. Not only that, it will also be a lifesaver for all of you out there whose DVD drives have given their souls spinning up discs over the years, or whose discs are too far scratched up or suffering from disc rot. You can finally tell the DVD drive to take its well-deserved retirement because you will not be using it moving forward. If that's what you're after for your Xbox, then let's walk through the 3 things you will need. The first item is an IDE 80 cable. And this one is an absolute must for any hard disk larger than 80GB. Even if your Xbox already has something like a 120, 160 or 200GB IDE hard disk installed, but it still uses the original 40-wire stock cable, absolutely replace it with an 80-wire cable. In the early days of modding, people simply did not realize how much of a difference this cable makes. Personally, I prefer the 90cm version over the 61cm version, but most 61cm, also known as 24-inch variants, will work just fine. They are a tighter squeeze inside the box, but they are much easier to find these days if you need to buy one. The price varies a lot depending on your location. As a tip, check your attic or basement for any old high tower PC, as especially the 61cm 80-wire cable was a very common default in these high tower PCs. And well, SATA replaced IDE and the cables, you need to be lucky to find them cheap basically. The second item you're likely going to need is a suitable IDE to SATA adapter. Now, this is a bit tricky because there are a lot of adapters on the market and not everyone works. Dempsey86 over on the Xbox Scene forum has compiled an extremely useful buyer's guide on IDE to SATA adapters, which I strongly suggest you check out. It's based on years of Xbox user feedback compressed into a single long thread, complete with clear photos and notes on what works well and what does not. Make absolutely sure you check it and do not blindly follow the "oh, it must be a StarTech" advice you see posted everywhere. Not every StarTech adapter is a winner, and many of them are heavily overpriced compared to other good options. At the same time, be careful not to buy a variant that will not work at all or only works poorly. The price range here, well, it's roughly between $5 and $25. It really depends on what you find and where you are buying. The third item is, of course, a larger hard disk. Finding your sweet spot here depends a bit on your use case, but the most popular candidates are SATA drives ranging from the extremely common and now ultra cheap 500GB models up to around 2TB. These can often be found refurbished, sometimes even with warranty, starting at around $20. Personally, I like recycling 500GB SATA drives since I still have plenty pulled from old computers or that I bought up in batches when those drives hit rock bottom prices. We interrupt this amazing broadcast to tell you something important. While editing the final video, I realized it would have been a good idea to advise you at this point that if you're using any older hard disk, it always is a good idea to run a quick health check using Crystal Disk Info. Traditional hard disks contain rotating parts and the condition of a drive can vary greatly. A quick scan can tell you a lot about whether a drive is worth using or not. That said, back to our regular video. With a quick search, you'll be able to pick one up for around $10 to $15 maybe, it really just depends, have a good look around. Cable check, adapter check, and hard disk check. Now let's take a look at the two methods I will show you to get the new hard disk ready. For the first method, I will show you what to do if you still have a working DVD drive. And you only need that DVD drive to boot Hexen, so if it only boots say 1 out of 5 times, that's perfectly fine. If you need to temporarily swap in a drive from a second unit or borrow one from a friend for 10 minutes, that works too. After this, we will not need a DVD drive anymore, so I don't recommend buying a replacement drive just for this. I have connected the new 500GB SATA hard disk using the IDE to SATA adapter and replaced the IDE cable. With the hard disk completely empty, we will use the Hexen Engineering disk to boot. In this case, I'm using the 2021 edition, but older versions will work just fine as well. We need Hexen to boot because it recognizes that there is a new hard disk attached. So, if you're able to spin up the Hexen disk, it will prompt you asking if you would like to format the new hard disk. From here, pull the triggers and press start button multiple times in a row. For now, don't worry about the layout or drive letters, just go through it, pulling the triggers and hitting start. We will be using FATX and XDON shortly to redo this entire process using the best 2026 settings. Once formatting is complete and the Xbox has booted, we now have access to DHCP. At this point, use FTP to copy the Cerbios folder to the root of the E drive. The second essential FTP transfer you need to make is the XDON folder, which typically goes in the E/apps folder. After transferring these two, remove the Hexen disk and reboot the Xbox. Because your Xbox now has the E/Cerbios folder present, it will boot into Cerbios recovery mode. From here, we'll go to the E drive and start XDON. With XDON's green X showing on the Xbox, let's switch over to your PC or laptop and open Fat Explorer. This part will be similar to what I showed in my previous video, so check that one if you want a bit more detail. For now, I will speed up things and just point out the small differences. While scanning devices, instead of a stock 8GB hard disk, Fat Explorer will now detect the new 500GB SATA hard disk. So let's move on to formatting. Select the drive, select Cerbios, select primary HDD, and let's slow down a bit in the partition section. You will see that Fat Explorer suggests assigning 500 MB to the C partition, 5 GB to the E partition, and the remaining space of the 500GB drive to the F partition. I would say this layout is absolutely perfect. A small footprint for C, which does not need much space, a solid 5GB for E, which is more than enough to run a dashboard like XBMC for gamers smoothly and still have plenty of room for apps. And finally, a large chunk of space on F for storing all your CCI compressed games folders in F/games. As covered in my guide and in a previous video, what you're seeing here is how I assign the prepared zip files for the C and E drives. If you would like a bit more detail on that process, check the prior video, as the procedure is exactly the same as with the 8GB stock hard disk example. With larger drives, you simply get the added option to use a zip file for any additional drive letters, like the F drive. Since I do not recommend using XDON to image a drive filled with games due to the slower network transfer speed, it is perfectly fine to skip the F zip file. Fat Explorer will still create the F drive on your Xbox hard disk, but it will be left empty and you can fill it later using FTP. Format time, go go go! Obviously, I'm playing this back at a pretty ludicrous speed. This setup usually takes around 10 minutes or a bit more, so at this point you can sit back and relax or grab a coffee. Right now is also a great time for me to thank you for being here, and if you find this video helpful, a like and a subscribe would be awesome. Format complete, let's switch back to the Xbox. After resetting your Xbox, it will now boot with any custom settings you configured in Cerbios, including fancy new animations that give it a fresh look and feel. If your default dashboard is not set to DHCP by default, like this EvoX Dash variant, quickly pop into the settings. Change the network type from static to DHCP, and don't forget to scroll down to save your changes before you reboot the machine. Remember that F drive that we skipped in Fat Explorer? You can either create a folder called Games using FTP, or use the File Explorer on your Xbox, like I'm showing here. And that's about it. From here you can fill the Games folder across FTP and start enjoying your collection. That said, what if your DVD drive is broken beyond repair and you weren't able to do this entire setup? Let's dive into the second option on how you can format your new hard disk. So sadly, it's not uncommon for Xbox owners to discover that their DVD drive no longer works. In many cases, that is exactly why these consoles ended up in an attic or basement in the first place. If that's the case for you, then we're looking at this method, so all is not lost. Since we do not actually need a DVD drive to play games once the large hard disk is installed, we just need a different way to format the new hard disk so that the Xbox can boot without relying on the DVD drive. So let's talk about the method you can use to format a new hard disk outside of the Xbox. First, the hard disk needs to be connected to a regular computer or laptop, and luckily there are several ways to do that. The easiest and cheapest method is to use a desktop computer. Open it up and connect the SATA cable from the computer's motherboard directly to your new hard disk. The hard disk will also need a power connection since the SATA cable only transfers data, so the drive still needs power to operate. Most likely you will find a free power connector inside the PC, but if needed you can temporarily disconnect one from a device like a DVD writer or another accessory for a few minutes. Just make sure it's not a cable belonging to the hard disk the computer uses to boot. Another popular option is using one of the many external solutions available, such as a hard disk docking station, an adapter cable, or an external enclosure. These all allow you to connect the hard disk to your computer externally across USB. And one really important note here. External solutions start around $10 and go up from there. If you need to buy one, make sure to avoid any external adapters that do not have a separate power supply in addition to the USB cable. There are many adapter cables that physically fit, but sellers will often conveniently forget to mention that these do not support 3.5-inch hard disks that need the extra power. So, is there an external solution I specifically recommend? Well, it depends. There are hundreds of brands and models out there, and speed and quality can vary a lot. If you're only going to use it once in a blue moon, just get the cheapest option you can find with decent reviews. Something around $10 or $15 will be fine. If you think you might use it more often, it is worth spending a bit more on something well reviewed. Personally, I've had great experiences with both cases and docking stations from the brand Oracle, but there are many good brands out there. Just be sure to check the reviews. In any case, for this external method to work, we need to always make sure that your hard disk is connected to your PC or laptop. Once that is done, we can boot into Fat Explorer. If we do an initial scan like we did with the hard disk that's still attached to the Xbox, the drive will not show up yet. Not because it is missing, but because it has not been formatted or partitioned as an Xbox hard disk. When we move to formatting tools, the drive will appear as an available hard disk that Fat Explorer can work with directly while it is connected to your PC or laptop. From here, the procedure is more or less the same as the other procedure we handled in method 1. The big difference here is that at this step, it is very important to be extremely careful when selecting the correct hard disk. I have deliberately plugged in my Zoom USB microphone to demonstrate how Fat Explorer can show multiple storage devices at the same time. Now, a zoom microphone is obvious, you'll spot that immediately, but keep in mind that especially if you're working on a computer with several drives connected, you need to use extreme caution and carefully verify which hard disk you are selecting. In my case, I obviously do not want to format my zoom microphone and turn it into an Xbox hard disk. In your setup, you might see several actual hard disks listed, which makes it even easier to make a mistake, especially if those drives are similar in size, brand, or model. Once you're absolutely sure you have identified the correct drive, click on it to select it and then hit Next. From here on, the process is identical to the previous method. Select Cerbios formatting and so on and continue as shown earlier. You can use that chapter in this YouTube video to jump back to that section. Just remember to fully shut down your computer or laptop before disconnecting the hard disk. You want to be sure it is no longer being accessed by Windows. After that, all the remaining steps will be exactly the same as in method 1. And that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for joining me and good luck with your upgrade. BeepFixer signing off.